I hit rock bottom.
From his $48 million Miami mansion to hell on earth where chaos reigns. Just some of the words used to describe the Metropolitan Detention Center where Sean Diddy Combs is now being held without bail after pleading not guilty to trafficking and racketeering charges.
Diddy's lawyer says that his prison is unbearable, and apparently Diddy is not coping with it at all.
You have a desk, you have a plastic chair, you have your bed with a 1.5-inch mattress, no pillow, and you also have a locker. So you basically have 3 feet by 5 feet to move around. So you have a basic 15 square feet. It is a horrible, horrible place.
Diddy's lawyers were so eager to keep him out of jail, they offered his palatial $48 million home in Miami Beach and his private jets as bail. Today, they are even offering to restrict female visitors to his homes, except for his mother, daughters, and the mothers of his children if he is released.
Reports are saying that Diddy is in the middle of a serious nervous breakdown after being attacked in prison, which should not come as a surprise to anybody at this point. Diddy is in the most dangerous prison in New York.
Earth. The Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn is notorious for its appalling living conditions and rampant violence. How bad is it inside this federal lockup? There have been 2 murders, 4 suicides, and numerous stabbings and lockdowns in recent years. It's so out of control inside that 4 federal judges are reportedly refusing to send any more prisoners here.
His case is all over the media, and basically everybody is against him and waiting for him to face justice.
On September 16, 2024, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs was arrested in New York City and charged with racketeering, trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in relations for money. Prosecutors allege Diddy ran a criminal enterprise involving forced labor, kidnapping, and bribery. At the center of it all are so-called freak-offs, orchestrated erotic activities where Diddy allegedly directed men and women in X-rated performances. Many were said to be unknowingly filmed and blackmailed. Purportedly, victims, some underage, were controlled using threats, violence, narcotics, and money. Raids on Diddy's homes uncovered videos, firearms, and curiously, over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. Combs denies all charges, but if convicted, faces up to life in prison.
We are committed to bringing justice to everyone who's been victimized by the defendant.
I hit rock bottom.
It's pretty easy to understand why people would want to attack him and why he's struggling so badly with it. But why he's being attacked might surprise you. Supposedly, Diddy is being targeted not because of who he is, but because of what he knows.
Multiple other accusers came forward with civil suits alleging Diddy's pattern of sexual abuse dated back as far as the 1990s. A civil suit filed by Rodney Jones, also known as the producer Lil Rod, brings these accusations into 2024. According to Lil Rod's lengthy suit, Diddy is the kingpin in a gun trafficking, trafficking, and trafficking scheme. Lil Rod also accused Diddy of sexual assault and echoed Cassie's allegation that Diddy forced him to have sex with a prostitute. Lil Rod's lawsuit includes something else that may have piqued the Fed's interest. He alleges there are hundreds of hours of video and audio recordings of Diddy's illegal behavior. We now know this is what the feds were searching for on March 25th, when they executed search warrants at Diddy's homes in Los Angeles and Miami. At the time, we only speculated that investigators collected electronic evidence, but now we know for sure. According to the indictment against Diddy, investigators seized more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant from his home. The court doc states these items were used in something referred to as freak-offs, which were elaborate and produced performances that Combs arranged, directed during, and often electronically recorded. In arranging these freak-offs, Combs, with the assistance of members and associates of the Combs enterprise, transported and caused to be transported commercial workers across state lines and internationally. During freak-offs, Combs distributed a variety of controlled substances to victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant. Sometimes, unbeknownst to the victims, Combs kept videos he filmed of victims engaging in acts with commercial workers. After freak-offs, Combs and the victims typically received IV fluids to recover from the physical exertion and use. So Diddy's business employees allegedly facilitated these freak-offs by stocking the hotel rooms in advance with the required freak-off supplies, including controlled substances, baby oil, lubricant, extra linens, and lighting, cleaning the hotel rooms after the freak-offs to try to mitigate room damage, arranging for travel for victims, commercial sex workers, and Combs to and from freak-offs, resupplying Combs with the requested supplies, delivering large sums of cash to Combs to pay the commercial sex workers, and scheduling the delivery of IV fluids. So these items were collected during the federal raids, including narcotics and hundreds of bottles of lube and baby oil. There were also electronic files of these freak-offs, and the feds collected those too. In addition to all this, investigators seized AR-15 guns, ammunition, and a large-capacity drum magazine from Diddy's home. Since those raids in March, federal prosecutors have been crafting their case against Diddy.
Some people, including Diddy, believe that his attackers are acting on behalf of other people, those in Hollywood and the music industry who are scared that Diddy might turn on them. It's the same kind of thought that started circulating after Jeffrey Epstein passed away under mysterious circumstances in the exact same prison.
Breaking news this hour, officials say multimillionaire Jeffrey Epstein has taken his own life in a New York jail.
Yeah, Epstein pleaded not guilty in July. That was to charges of trafficking dozens of underage girls, some as young as 14 years old, forcing them to have with.
So it's easy to see why people would jump to that conclusion. But Diddy is apparently struggling badly with the pressure of the situation. For months, he had done everything to try and avoid being there longer than he had to be. Apparently, he had hired such a high-caliber legal team specifically so that he would be out before the holidays.
Savage! I'm a savage! Oh! I'm a savage! Whatever I want, I'm going to get! Whatever I want, I have to get!
And now he's just furious that he's still there. I don't know what he was expecting, though. It's not like the lawyers can do much when there's so much evidence and so many witnesses coming to try and take him down. He's just setting himself up for disappointment.
It's so difficult to reflect on the darkest times in your life. Sometimes you gotta do that. I was fucked up. I hit rock bottom.
Apparently, he even got himself in such an emotional spiral just after Christmas that he was supposedly begging the guards to let him go to the hospital.
But I'm committed to be a better man each and every day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm truly sorry.
He said that he wanted to be checked out properly to make sure that he was okay, but the guards refused to let him out. He had to turn to meditation to try and calm himself down because he was just too stressed about the whole situation.
Diddy had a meltdown in his cell and begged the guards to take him to the hospital for observation, but they refused. This same friend or person told the Daily Mail, quote, "He eventually managed to calm himself down with the meditation technique he's been using while he's been behind bars. It took him a few hours of deep breathing and focusing to get out of the bad space he was in, but he finally managed it." This isn't the first time Diddy's mental health has come into question while he's been at MDC. When he first arrived, he was on suicide watch, which the U.S. Department of Justice National Institute of Corrections describes as supervisory precautions taken for suicidal inmates that require frequent observation. Diddy's suicide watch was only temporary, though. He was housed in a special protective unit of the jail after that for the first few weeks of his stay. But Diddy right now is in Gen Pop, meaning general population, the place where majority of the inmates stay. And that's where he apparently had this meltdown over the holidays, at least according to one source.
Honestly, it just seems like reality has finally hit him. His whole life, he's been able to get away with his crimes purely because of his wealth and status. But now, he has neither. And he's clearly not going to be getting out of this anytime soon.
Well, moments ago, a judge ordering the star to be sent to jail.
That's right. The judge refusing to grant bail to Combs while he awaits trial. This new development coming after Combs appeared inside a Manhattan courtroom today, where prosecutors unsealed an indictment claiming the hip-hop mogul used his media empire as a criminal enterprise.
Diddy pleading not guilty to federal sex trafficking, racketeering, and interstate transportation to engage in prostitution charges. Well, today's indictment coming after Diddy was taken into custody last night here in the city, and roughly 6 months after federal authorities conducted a sex trafficking investigation that included searches in his Miami and Los Angeles home.
He's not even being given special treatment inside the prison. When he first arrived, Diddy was put into a special cell to keep watch over him. But that's pretty common, actually. High-profile people like Jeffrey Epstein or Diddy are almost always put on watch because the sudden culture shock can drive them to impulsive actions that end their own lives. It's also been said that Diddy is no longer eating the food, in part because he's convinced that someone is trying to poison him.
Other reports that Diddy has stopped eating. This could be because he isn't enjoying the food, but it also could be because he's paranoid that someone is out to get him and may slip poison into his food.
Which the former warden of the prison said was probably true. The warden has given on-the-record interviews saying that Diddy is actually handling the situation as well as he can. The food is notoriously out of date, cheap, and basically just budget-friendly. But this is a prison after all. It's not supposed to be gourmet, luxury, five-star food.
And this is a man going from private chefs and food from across the world to a set menu just like any other detainee or inmate. What can you tell us about the food and the commissary in a place like the Federal Detention Center in Brooklyn?
It's a difference. That much I can tell you. You're going to have a lot of starchy food, cereals. If you get any vegetables at all, they're old, so to speak. They are not fresh. Same fruits and vegetables, no good. A lot of processed food, some rice and beans and muffins and things that generally most people don't like to eat. It's not terribly healthy. And again, the government would say that is a consequence of this process. So certainly it is an adjustment. Most people will lose weight. And it's hard because he can't even really exercise in this environment. There's no outdoor, like I've said before, it's not one of these camps where you can walk around a track. Even in a high security penitentiary like Atlanta, there's going to be a track and outdoors. When you're in a detention center, locked down 23 hours a day, not eating healthy foods or getting your medications, it could test even the strongest person. And again, that's what I would say to him. Your family is watching. There are people, so many are critical of him, I understand, but there are also those that love and support him who are watching. So as crazy as it sounds to some, and I've been called crazy, it's an opportunity to demonstrate leadership, to express to his family. Others have gone through misery and struggle. They have emerged strong, with dignity, with a plan. And as I said earlier, once he embraces a better message, that it's not about him and how miserable his living situation is, but rather people he might have hurt, that's when he can get on the right side and get towards eventually getting out of there, and also a shorter sentence with better messaging.
However, it's obvious that Diddy is now just living in a constant state of paranoia, knowing that he could lose his life at any point in this prison. And the sudden announcement of the Jay-Z case has not made it any easier for Diddy to try and cope with what's going on.
Well, we're going to begin this hour with rap mogul Jay-Z forcefully denying claims in a new lawsuit that he and Sean Diddy Combs sexually assaulted a minor at a party 24 years ago. Jay-Z said it's just an attempt at blackmail, and he called it, quote, idiotic. The suit originally mentioned only Combs, who's facing federal trafficking charges. Jerika Duncan has more now on the allegations against Jay-Z.
He's one of hip-hop's most celebrated artists, a successful businessman known for launching careers, and he's married to one of music's biggest stars. But on Sunday night, Sean Carter, who goes by Jay-Z, said being named in a civil lawsuit alleging is blackmail. According to the accuser, named Jane Doe in the lawsuit, the assault happened at an after-party following the 2000 MTV Video Music Awards when she was 13. She claims she attended a house party thrown by Sean Diddy Combs, who is also named in the lawsuit. She says she was given a drink that left her feeling, quote, woozy and lightheaded. Doe claims she entered an empty bedroom so she could lie down. Shortly afterwards, she said Combs and Jay-Z and an unnamed female celebrity came in, with Combs saying, quote, you are ready to party. The accuser then claims she was pinned down and first by Carter and then by Combs as the female celebrity watched. CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson.
The details of these allegations are really troubling. The plaintiff here alleges that Sean Combs and Jay-Z her and then her. It's hard to get more serious than this.
In a statement, Carter responded to the allegations and lashed out at Doe's attorney, Tony Busby, calling him a fraud and stating, I will not give you one red penny, and these allegations are so heinous in nature that I implore you to file a criminal complaint, not a civil one. Whomever would commit such a crime against a minor should be locked away. Would you not agree? Busby has filed several lawsuits against Combs, accusing him of physical assault and after Combs was charged in September with federal offenses, including trafficking and racketeering. Combs, who was recently denied bail for a third time, pleaded not guilty and is set to face trial for those charges next May. Combs has denied all wrongdoing, his legal team calling the revised lawsuit shameless publicity stunts.
It's possible that a lot of people will see that lawsuit and realize that any association with Diddy could come back to haunt them. In fact, I think that's basically guaranteed. Right now, everything is speculation.
No matter how many lawsuits are filed, it won't change the fact that Mr. Combs has never sexually assaulted or sex trafficked anyone, man or woman, adult or minor. We live in a world where anyone can file a lawsuit for any reason. Fortunately, a fair and impartial judicial process exists to find the truth, and Mr. Combs is confident he will prevail in court. And in response to the docuseries, his attorneys told The Hollywood Reporter, these documentaries are rushing to cash in on the media circus surrounding Mr. Combs. The producers failed to provide sufficient times or details for his representatives to address unsubstantiated claims, many from unidentified participants whose allegations lack context. By withholding this information, they made it impossible for Mr. Combs to present facts to counter these fabricated accusations. This production is clearly intended to present a one-sided and prejudicial narrative. As we said before, Mr. Combs cannot respond to every publicity stunt or facially ridiculous claim. He has full confidence in the facts and the judicial process where the truth will prevail. The accusations against him are pure fiction.
There are no concrete names being put into the media, but a lot of the people who are close to Diddy will surely be planning their next moves. They have to try and find a way to prevent themselves from being identified as complicit in this massive trafficking ring, which is why the conversation just keeps coming back to the history of what happens in his prison. Notable figures go in, and they mysteriously pass away, especially if they happen to have information related to high-profile individuals. The Epstein incident is something that nobody can overlook.
These recent charges include allegations he abused underage girls from 2002 to 2005 inside his Manhattan and Palm Beach homes. When he faced similar allegations a decade ago, federal prosecutors in Florida struck a secret plea deal with Epstein. He avoided a possible life sentence in prison and spent 13 months in Palm Beach jail, where he was allowed to leave for work 6 days a week. That 2008 plea deal was negotiated in part by Trump's current labor secretary, Alexander Acosta, who was then the top federal prosecutor in Miami. Now, prosecutors and investigators are seeking to hold Epstein without bail and have appealed for other victims to come forward.
Your bravery might just empower others to speak out about crimes committed against them. It's important to remember there never was, nor will there be, an excuse for this kind of behavior.
Epstein could face up to 45 years in prison.
And I honestly think that this is happening all over again. There are a lot of people that will be impacted by Diddy's scandal, especially if the worst details come out.
We all human beings, and a few people were saying I was this violent character, just because I was breaking people's jaws and arms. And look at me, I'm like, I'm just a passionate young man, and I made a mistake.
So I would not be surprised at all if major artists, celebrities, or executives are pulling strings to try and get Diddy off the board. Part of the reason that the jail is so notorious for violence is that the general population is extremely unequal. The inmates range from white-collar finance criminals to straight-up bank robbers, substance dealers, and serial violent offenders. If Diddy were to go into regular housing in this environment, it's almost guaranteed that he would not make it to the morning. Even if they're not being paid by people on the outside to finish the job, every inmate knows that ending Diddy's life would bring street cred unlike any other.
In terms of fighting their case, it just makes it all the more difficult, because now in terms of you being able to communicate with your attorney, you are at the realms of just what's going on with respect to the facility. Is it on lockdown? Is the facility letting visitors in?
Detainees on suicide watch wear tearaway paper hospital-style garments and rubber shower shoes. The isolation may be the worst part for Combs. It's being done for his protection in the violence-prone facility. He will have no bunkie.
Nobody in that prison would even hesitate to do it. And that thought is so terrifying to Diddy that he has begged, bribed, and urged the authorities to move him to Essex County Jail in New Jersey, a much less violent jail. But they have no interest in wasting time and money shifting prisons for one person. I honestly think that at this point, Diddy is finally realizing how serious this situation really is. It seems like he truly thought that he would be able to get up and walk away from prison pretty quickly.
In terms of fighting their case, it just makes it all the more difficult, because now in terms of you being able to communicate with your attorney, you are at the realms of just what's going on with respect to the facility. Is it on lockdown? Is the facility letting visitors in?
Detainees on suicide watch wear tearaway paper hospital-style garments and rubber shower shoes. The isolation may be the worst part for Combs. It's being done for his protection in the violence-prone facility. He will have no bunkie.
But instead, he's starting to see that he's probably never going to get out of jail. They have just about everything they need to charge him, especially with more and more victims coming forward to share their stories and evidence being submitted to the case.
I've been quiet for 18 years.
I am absolutely nervous sharing what I've seen.
I can no longer just remain silent.
This is where I'm supposed to be.
Sean Diddy Combs facing a slew of allegations.
The biggest question for me was, has this happened before?
Hard to overstate how important the Puff sound was to the 90s.
The thing about hip hop, it's not just a music, it's a lifestyle.
But then there was the other side.
They did not realize the extent of the darkness.
Eventually, he's going to be shown to be innocent and will fight every day.
There just seems so much more to the story.
The truth will always find its way, even in the dark.
She has knots on her head. It was horrific.
He says sometimes you just gotta let these hoes know who the boss is.
I see them both holding guns.
I'm fighting for my life.
He said, I'm Puff Daddy, I'll eat your face off.
I always believed that I was the only victim.
Why did I put this on myself?
A lot of people like Puffy in this music business. Exposing Puffy means exposing them.
The walls have closed in too much, and he cannot handle that. Diddy knows that he isn't safe in prison. He's not that delusional, but he also knows that there's really nothing that he can do to protect himself either. If he helps the feds, he makes himself more of a target. If he doesn't, he's exposed and in serious danger. That's why Diddy was so desperate for his legal team to get him out as quickly as they could.
We made a bail appeal to Judge Carter. It did not go our way. The fight continues. We're not giving up by a long shot. I told Mr. Combs I'm going to try and get his case to trial as quickly as possible. I'm going to try and minimize the amount of time he spends in very, very difficult and I believe inhumane housing conditions in the special housing unit of the Metropolitan Detention Facility. And I'm going to do everything that I can to move his case as quickly as possible. I understand that the government has a great amount of electronic devices that they have to download and provide to me, but everything's on the government's timetable, nothing's on the defendant's timetable, and they're gonna have to accommodate me and him and give us a quick trial, and I'm gonna be pushing for that. He's ready, he's focused. He has been ready to defend this case since he first found out about this case. Nothing has changed from his perspective. I obviously would much prefer to fight this case with him out of jail, and we are going to try to bring that about through additional legal process. But wherever he is, his resolve is the same. He believes he's innocent. I believe he's innocent, and we're going to fight this case with all of our might until we don't have to fight any longer.
Supposedly, his team pulled every string they possibly could and still ended up with absolutely nothing to show for it. The judge said that Diddy had a history of threatening victims, something that would probably only continue if he were to be released. Actually, I'd say that Diddy was known for much worse than threats. But what do you guys think? Should Diddy be moved to a different jail? Do you think that he will make it until his trial date in May? And do you think that there are high-profile people attempting to take Diddy out? Honestly, it would not surprise me if there really were people doing everything they could to try and take him out. In my opinion, it's possible that Jeffrey Epstein did not end his own life. He had dirt on some of the most powerful people in the world, and lives and legacies would have been destroyed had he talked. Diddy built the exact same kind of life as Jeffrey.
Comparison between Epstein. There is one stark contrast, because Epstein was charged with respect to abusing minors, minor girls, and Combs, despite what you might have heard on other networks, and unfortunately I've seen kind of misinformation, Combs currently is not charged with any crimes involving minors. And while there are some civil lawsuits that name Combs as having been accused of things like having underage girls at his parties or engaging in solicitation of minors, the indictment against him doesn't charge him with anything related to with minors. That was a glaring deficiency in the case. And that could either be maybe they felt there wasn't enough there, maybe they're holding on to it, but I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, there's a different quality to that when you're talking about adults, because, and it does open some arguments up for the defense, because when it comes to minors, virtually any contact is going to be strict liability. In other words, if it happened, as a prosecutor, you just have to prove the age. And under most states and under most criminal statutes, that's going to be enough.
There's no consent.
Right, there's no consent.
Yeah.
However, consent with adults will be, I think that's going to be a large part of the defense here. And it's going to be interesting to see how that comes out. Epstein, one parallel that I immediately noticed here is that each one of these men had people orbiting them that wanted their time, that wanted their attention. And one of the questions I've gotten since coming out with the book 2 days ago is, if I could prosecute anybody throughout time and history, who would it be?
Well, that's a good question.
It's a great question. No, and in my mind, it's Jeffrey Epstein. And the way that man's power and influence. So he had this orbit of people that were around him, and they were flying on his jet. And then there was that abysmal prosecutorial failure that happened in Florida, where they let him plead to one count of solicitation of with a minor. And it still said with a minor. It was a ridiculous plea. I think every prosecutor in that should be ashamed of themselves for that, honestly. And following that, it was like, what? How did this go so wrong? And then the Miami Herald, to their credit, they ran a series of articles that changed the complexion of that. But what was fascinating is there are people here in New York City who continue to associate with Jeffrey Epstein after he was convicted of a crime with a minor, and they were still riding the jet, including a journalist who was involved. That is disturbing. So that case was one where it was like everybody wanted to forget that conviction, and then the manifest came out for who was flying around on his jet, and there's a big difference between the before that conviction and after. But there were some really famous people that continue to associate with that guy.
So it seems possible that the same outcome might be on the cards for him.
I always ask myself, what would P. Diddy do? What would P. Diddy do? No, I don't know. Hey, let's ask him. Oh, okay. P. Diddy?
What's up?
We can't wake up Shane.
However, given what he put so many people through, I don't know if he should be moved to a more comfortable prison. He cultivated an atmosphere of fear and terror in others.
Well, that's what people can't understand.
Yeah.
We can't be judged by man. God runs this world,
So it kind of makes sense that he's now experiencing the exact same thing. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below.